That isn't kind
Yeah,
of.
for the cars.
Oh,
Yeah.
a period in the evening, but it was only 2 hours.
Hey,
but
Jim,
now
we
it's
can
a
pass
good
this.
3 hours.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's Common Council meeting. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Lottie?
Yes.
Present.
Here.
Sedlacek? Sedlacek.
Present.
Jarvis? Here. Hanson?
Present.
Anderson?
Present.
Fowler? Riley? Fernsler?
Let the record show that we have a quorum. Will please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening to our audience present tonight and those at home. We always appreciate you tuning in to our council proceedings. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting held May 10th. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held May 10th, 2011. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Next item is the audience portion where we have people who want to talk to the council and address us. This is where you get to speak and we get to listen. And tonight we have no one that signed up. We do encourage you to come in and address the council if you have things on your mind. Moving on, item 5, ordinances. Item 5A, an ordinance repealing and recreating Title II, Chapter 6, entitled Municipal Court to incorporate the revisions in the Wisconsin statutes. This is ordinance number 8, the first presentation. We want to stipulate that this is on the city website and is on file in the clerk's office for review. I think what we'll simply, with that stipulation, have a brief summary maybe from Clerk Huberty and Attorney Fever as to what the purpose of this is, and then we'll move on.
I'll defer to Attorney
Okay.
Feber as she drafted the.
Sure, thank you. So I know that we've talked a little bit about the changes that the legislature has made to the municipal court statutes. Those went into effect on January 1st. So what we've done here is just updated your municipal code to comply with the new statutes. Just gonna highlight a few of the more substantive changes. On page 2, under 2-6-3 municipal judge, under paragraph D, the election term, the term has been changed from 2 years to 4 years. So now when you elect a municipal judge, you're electing a judge for a 4-year term rather than a 2-year term. So that's one of the substantive changes. And then section 2-6-6, which is the municipal court contempt procedure, the legislature completely overhauled what the definition of contempt was and what the judge has the ability to impose as far as punishments for contempt. And so that section is completely redone to now be in compliance with the statutes. So those are really the two major changes. There was lots of renumbering in the statutes, so all the numbers are now up to date as far as the statutory references in your code. And certainly if any of the council members have a question about any of the provisions, I'd be happy to go through that with them.
Good, thank you very much. Alderman Sedlacek.
My question would be the term of 4 years. And we've gone back and forth with discussion about going with the city of Sheboygan and city of Kohler, perhaps maybe if Sheboygan Falls and Elkhart. And would it be possible to elect someone, if they're elected, they get it for 4 years, But if we disband the municipal court, are we liable for the salary or,
The way the statutes are currently written, you have the ability to disband your municipal court at the natural expiration of a term.
okay, so when would this go into effect? Since this past April then?
It would be 2015, would
Okay.
be
The
Judge
first
Moody's
possible time that we would be
the
able, okay,
expiration of his term.
okay, thank you.
Alderman Lottie?
We just elected a judge,
Mhm.
and what term is for that one? We just, that was a 2-year term, wasn't it?
That would be
Was it
for a
4 years?
4-year
That
term
was the
because the
first one?
statutes had
Okay.
changed, although your code hadn't
Okay, we
caught
haven't
up
caught
to
up
the
with it yet,
statute.
okay, thank you.
That's the first presentation, and that'll come again on the 14th. Moving on, 5B, an ordinance repealing and recreating Title VII, Chapter 2, Article 8, fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquor, City of Plymouth Code of General Ordinances. This is ordinance number 9 of 2011, first presentation. Again, I'll ask Attorney Feber to comment and then Clerk Huberty to add any comments.
Well, as far as this ordinance goes, I use the track changes function, and I know that your clerk treasurer, as well as the police chief and the fire chief, also had some input using the track changes function. So all of us have gone through this, and you should be able to see where we've made changes to your existing code. If you're not familiar with track changes, everything that's got the strike through is stuff we're taking out, and the underline are things that are being added. A lot of what we did was to bring the code up to speed with what current requirements are in the statutes. There is one provision that I'd like some input from the council on, which is on page 3, and that's paragraph BB, the reserve Class B intoxicating liquor license. It wasn't too long ago that we had a discussion at the committee of the whole level about full-service restaurants. And Clerk Huberty explained how that you have several reserve Class B intoxicating liquor licenses. And currently, your code reads that 3 reserve Class B intoxicating liquor licenses shall be reserved and allocated for issuance solely to full-service restaurants. But we didn't have a definition of what a full-service restaurant means. The statutes define restaurant, but not what a full-service restaurant is. And so I've offered some language here, but certainly I'm looking for input from the council as to what you all feel would be appropriate as far as defining the full-service restaurant. And perhaps it is that you don't want to reserve 3 licenses. But if you do, then we need to define what we're reserving it for, what's a full-service restaurant.
Clerk Huberty, do you want to add something to that?
As Attorney Feber says, I guess we are looking for input from the council as to how you want, if you want to change or not change.
We'll start with Alderman Lottie and then Alderman Ferguson.
I see on here, do we have 3, at the present time, we have 3 reserve?
We currently have, yes, there's only 3 available at this time because one was issued to the depot.
Okay.
But upon the renewal licenses that will be coming before you next month, he will then, hopefully the council then will reissue it, the renewal to him as a original license.
Okay.
And then there'll be 4 reserve licenses available.
And just to add quick, and then we're close to 8,500 in population. When we
Okay.
cross that, we get another one, so that could be
In a year or
potentially,
2.
in a year or 2, 5.
My feeling on the reserve then would be that we keep 2 in reserve. When we get 5, we wind up with 2, and I think if we have 3 now, we should issue them out. We'll still have, if we issue the 3 out now, next month, we'll still have 1 in reserve. And when we reach 85, we'll have 2 in reserve. And that's just my feeling on it. I think that the Arts Center and Generational and probably the Eagles, would apply. And
Mayor, and I guess when we're talking
Alderman.
about,
Go ahead.
Thank you. When we're talking about the definition of full-service restaurant, it's important to remember that you also have a resolution setting policy that bona fide clubs and lodges are not able to apply for a liquor license. So if it's the council's desire to allow those nonprofit organizations to apply for a Class B liquor license, that resolution would also need to be revised to reflect the updated policy.
We would address that in the resolution, is what
Right,
we're
right,
saying.
at the same time, you know, and then the full-service restaurant thing, I can see probably an Applebee's or Outback Steakhouse coming, but not in the immediate future. I don't see it coming, not when I saw on TV today, there's 50 places in the city of Plymouth where you can get a meal, you know, in 50 different establishments. So I'm not seeing an Applebee's or something coming into Plymouth in the immediate future. So I'm looking at that, having two in reserve for that. That's just my feeling in case one does come. And when you talk about seating, a full-service restaurant, seating 100 people or more, you know, I'm wondering if that count is high. 40 hours I can see, that tells me, you know, if a lodge or something wants to come in and have a full-service license, they gotta be open 40 hours, you know. I don't have a problem with that point of it. You know, that I can live with that thing.
Alderman Fernsler?
Yeah, if a restaurant is only open in the evening, most of the time they're not open 40 hours.
Right.
So 40 hours don't cut the mustard here. Because if you just have a restaurant that opens in the evening, and they open at 6 o'clock, and they close when their last cut, that could be 8 o'clock, it could be 9 o'clock, it could be 10 o'clock. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be 40 hours.
I would make the assumption, and Attorney Fever can maybe, I guess, differentiate, the open hours would be open to the public. Let's say they open up at 4 o'clock. And closing in the city of Plymouth for a establishment is, Chief, 1 o'clock? 2 o'clock on weekends, so you've got
As for a
four.
restaurant, restaurants don't stay open until 2 o'clock.
Well, no, I'm just saying, their regular hours would be 4 to 1. Now, they serve less than 4 to 1, that's what I was getting
So
at.
are we going by what you think they might have?
That's what
Mike?
Attorney Fever is trying to get some input on, and that's a good question, because just because they're a restaurant doesn't mean that they're open, the kitchen's open till 1.
Right.
The bar could still be open
Bars
till
could
1.
still be open till 1.
And, right, I mean, this is what I'm looking to get
Exactly,
some
so these are
feedback
good
on.
questions.
The bar-
When I drafted the full-service restaurant definition, it was sort of drafted with the idea that we were saving these reserve licenses for the big Applebee's or Texas Roadhouse, and so that's kind of what I was thinking of when I drafted that language. That's not to mean that a restaurant that's open from 4 to 10 p.m. 3 days a week wouldn't be able to apply for a liquor license. They just wouldn't have one of those 3 that are reserved for the Applebee's type establishments. It's also important to note that once a restaurant gets up to 300 people for seating, that there's an exception to the quota. And so the city could, if it wanted to, issue a license outside of the quota. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Clerk Huberty. And so once you get really big, then you can kind of get around the quota that's established for the Class B liquor.
Has this new Mexican restaurant asked for a license? They haven't.
No, that's the luncheon type thing. That's my understanding from the committee, John? Yeah, I guess we're not, that wasn't mentioned in the projections or anything. It's not anticipated.
Okay, my other question is, we have a beer license and we have a wine. Is there anything that says we can put a beer and wine license together?
You can't.
The wine license requires that you are a restaurant in order to use that license. You have to be a restaurant.
That's a state
And you
statute.
serve the wine there and the people drink it there. It's, that is what is required by state statutes of a Class C wine
So
license.
the art center would not be able to get a Class C wine
Well,
license.
only twice a year for,
That doesn't
Not a
cover.
that's
permit.
right.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But they
Yeah.
couldn't have a wine for the
Yeah.
year, correct? That's the answer you're looking for.
You have to be a restaurant and serving wine to your customers. That's,
So the only thing that is open to, say, the art center or the PIC
Class B liquor license.
would be a Class B liquor license.
Right, that they apply for to get around the.
well, not according to your current
The
resolution.
resolution
Correct.
would prohibit that. That's not
But we're in the process of changing the
correct.
resolution.
And that's why this
Are we-
addresses one thing.
This is the ordinance, there's also a you have the
resolution
ordinance
is
and you have a
different than this,
resolution.
Right.
Mr. Mayor,
What, and on this part, on the reserve, we address that here on the definition of full service. Generally speaking, we had a discussion earlier today, the, full-service restaurants are in the 150 to 180 capacity, not the 100. So, you know, we need a number there as well. But we're trying to define full service here in the ordinance. The resolution is where we address the allowable categories that you're talking
Well,
about.
If you're gonna keep this at
Attorney
100 to
Fever?
150, you're gonna keep some reserve licenses unused for quite a few years.
well, that's, Mr. Mayor, that's one of the reasons I'm saying, you know, when we go back to the original license, we'll have 4 reserves coming up. When we reach 8,500 capacity, population, we'll have another one, so we would technically have 5 reserves at that time. That's why I'm saying, use up the 3 reserves we have now, change the resolution or whatever you have to do, and ordinance, keep the 3, use the 3 reserves, then we'll have 2 reserves for full-service restaurants coming up, who knows when. We would still have 2 in reserve for full-service restaurants. And I can see, like, again, I can see maybe taking the 40 hours down to 30 hours. If you're looking at restaurants, supper clubs that open at 4, and they quit, the kitchen shuts down at 10 or 9. The bar normally stays open. The people don't get up and just run out the door. The bar stays open probably till 11, 12, maybe 1, you know, so you're getting into the hours there. 40 might be stretching it, 30 would be reasonable in there, it would be 30 hours in there, would be a reasonable time. Or
Alderman
35 is
Hanson?
what the difference.
I suggest we go to put this to a committee of the whole and, you know, put some more things in concrete to this. I don't know if we have to do this before the next meeting, if this has to be passed at the next meeting or not. But I suggest we put this committee of the whole so we can, hash this out.
Revisit that at the committee of the whole.
What we need to do is have this in place before we grant renewals on June 14th. And that's important because now that's gonna fix the next year. So the committee of the
That's only
whole.
four. That doesn't affect it.
Well, we're gonna issue licenses, I think there'll be 2 reserves, 1 reserve
Well,
use.
but you're
and
setting policy starting July 1.
But
That's
we
when the
don't have
renewals are.
applications for those new ones. If you change the amount, or you change the classifications on who can apply, that would have, once you do that, then the people could apply for the reserve licenses. The current ones that will be coming before you on June 14th and 28th
Established already.
are already
Yeah, there's no new
established.
applicant.
Oh, they're
Right.
just renewables.
These are renewals.
Right.
Does this not affect them?
No,
No,
it does
no,
not.
Does not affect them.
No matter what?
Correct.
Okay.
This is not
Correct.
correct.
So I
You
think,
wanna make a motion?
well, we'll take it to committee of the whole, and Attorney Fever wants your input on this. I would suggest that you talk with her on this topic and give her some feedback so that she can help design this ordinance. This is why it's a first presentation. We're not asking for approval tonight. And the ordinance, the resolution can also be discussed with the committee of the whole next council meeting, and input from the council members for the resolution, so that we have that for presentation as well, because that will be the new year for any new applicants. And that's what I was trying to say. Alderman Fernsler, then Alderman
But
Lyon.
we don't have to rush this it through in June.
No.
We have time to get this done.
Yes. Assuming we don't have any new applicants before then.
I would,
Alderman Lyon.
I would
Yeah.
make one comment. I read this thing, and it took me a long time, to understand what's all in here. And I would suggest that if it's gonna go to a committee of the whole, that all the persons read it and start highlighting some areas where you have questions in, so that when we get back to a committee of the whole, we're all on the same page and discussing, and Attorney Feber knows where we're all coming from.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
if I may,
Director Jurgens.
if I may just add, if you have thoughts on it, give me your thoughts. I can include that in a memo, which outlines the different positions of the council related to this matter, as well as other suggestions from staff.
That's right.
For different alternatives to look at.
Attorney Fever?
And I just wanted to let the council know that in speaking with Clerk Huberty, she and I have come to the conclusion that, that PIC, because they will have a restaurant there, PIC would be eligible to get the Class B wine because they're a Class C wine, excuse me, because they're a restaurant. So when you're thinking about your thoughts on making some changes, keep in mind that we think that they would be able, right now, if we didn't make any changes, that they would be able to get the Class C wine, so not the temporary twice-a-year one, but they would be able to serve wine
regular.
all the time, as well as fermented malt beverages.
Which would be beer.
One question.
Right.
Okay, one more, Alderman Lyon.
Would it be possible for Patty to send us a copy of the resolution with the minutes, so we can look at that, look that over and combine it with our thing here?
I think that you would want to look at both of them together.
Right, right.
And consider them at the
So if we
same
can get
time.
a copy of that with our
And
minutes, I would appreciate that, then I can look it over.
You can look at them side by each and see
Right.
what's going on then.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's first presentation as well.
Number 6.
Moving on, item 6, resolutions. 6A, 2010 budget adjustment resolution. This is resolution number 8 for 2011. We have that in front of us. We had Paul Corson talk to the Personnel and Finance Committee this evening, and the committee recommended to the council that they approve the budget adjustment resolution. I'll call on Clerk Huberty. Oh, before I forget, for the audience at home, that ordinance fermented malt beverage is on the website for your opportunity to go on site and check on it and ask questions or pick up the phone and call the clerk's office or Director Jurgens as well. I forgot to mention that. All of our items are on the city website. Thank you. This one also is on the city website, and Clerk Huberty, I'll have you give us a quick run-through on the resolution number 8.
This is the annual budget adjustment resolution that comes from Paul Corson to finalize the financial statement for the end of the year, the adjustments that need to be made. There's always the labor pool adjustment, which in the budget, you budget one large amount for the whole entire labor pool, and then at the end of the year, he takes that amount and divvies it up between all of the different departments under DPW. And he noted this evening that there was about $28,000 left over that we were under budget in labor pool this year, so that was a plus there. And then he goes through the different areas, assigning out the contingent fund expense that's budgeted. The different items are listed there. That the contingency fund was $130,500 was budgeted. He used $120,500 of that, so there was $10,000 that would just flow back into the general fund. If there's any questions about, you know, what those expenses were used for, just let me know. Then we go into the unspent budgeted amounts that would be designated for future expenditures, like police uniforms. Those are guaranteed amounts. If you don't spend it, you know, in that year, it gets rolled over to the next year. So those amounts go into the designated funds that would be used in future years. Fire department physicals and the library were the other two. The library director, Martha Rashi, asked that the unspent amount in her budget be applied for the carpeting, saving for carpeting in the future. And when we passed the 2011 budget, she had requested $10,000 be put away, and that was taken out of the budget. But at the end of the year, when she had those additional funds, she asked that those be put away for a designated fund to start saving for the new carpeting. Then you have the following revenues that are being designated for future expenditures, things that came in that have specific purposes and have to be used in certain ways, so they're being put into the designated funds to be drawn out of either this year or in the future as needed. On page 2, then you have the unbudgeted expenditures that were withdrawn from the designated funds that were in there from the prior years. They're all listed out there. If anyone has a question on where they're coming from or why they were used, after I'm done, then they can ask. Then you have different grants, different things that were, the budget is being adjusted. We received like a $6,000 grant or MEG reimbursement, so the budget was adjusted. You put in $6,000 in revenue and $6,000 expense to make the statement. And it goes through, the next one was the building permit fees, where we changed the way we are accounting for building permits and fees. We added in $60,000 in expenses, which we paid out for the contract services, and then put in the $60,000 that we took in as revenue. It's just adding equal amounts in, but we have to account for it, and that's how you account for it in a financial statement. Same thing with insurance recoveries, and also the grants that were received for the Lone Oak Park project. And then there's the final line that talks about remaining excess expenditures not provided for above be provided for through excess corresponding revenues. All in all, if you look at all of the ins and outs, we ended up, I think it was 153, I think, $153,000, which was, the general fund increased by $153,000 at the end of the year. So, any questions about the resolution?
Do we have any questions of the resolution for, that Paul Corson prepared for us? This is our annual budget adjustment. Basically, it's house cleaning. And if there's no questions on that, Chair will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 8, stipulating that it is on the city website and available for
So move,
inspection.
Alderman Lottie.
Second, Alderman Anderson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Hanson.
I think it's been noted that our department leaders have done a good job in keeping tight budgets to come under $28,000, so they should be recognized for that.
Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes,
Motion carried, thank you. Next item, resolutions under item B is compliance maintenance resolution to WDNR. This is resolution number 16. I'll call on John McKinnon to give us a quick overview on that, and then the chair will entertain a motion.
Good evening. You have this evening a report to the DNR on the operations of the wastewater treatment plant. The state has required this report since 1986, and through the years, it's changed to how the point system is determined. And starting in 2004, they changed it to a grade point average with 4.0 being the best. This year, for 2010, I'm pleased to report to you that going through this matrix of examination that the rating for this community here is 4.0, which is the best you can do. That said, Mike Pincus and I continue to look at ways to improve and will not sit on the 4.0. We'll continue to hold the bar high and move forward. The report is not only on the wastewater system, wastewater treatment plant, but it's also on the collection system. And at the wastewater plant, it deals with the flows coming into the plant. It deals with the effluent quality that's being produced by the plant. It deals with the sludge disposal from the plant out into the agricultural fields. It deals with the staffing at the wastewater plant. Also deals with the operational certifications at the wastewater plant. And then it deals with the financial aspect, not only the wastewater plant, but also the collection system and its lift stations. And then, of course, finally, I mentioned the collection systems, the sanitary sewers, the forest mains, and the lift stations. So, short story going through the analysis, I'm pleased to report to you that we have a very excellent rating of 4.0. And as a result of presenting this report to you this evening, the state also requires that a compliance maintenance resolution be adopted by the governing body, which is you. And basically, you'll read the resolution here shortly, which is a very simple statement as to how we stand on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, John. At this time, I'll ask Clerk Huberty to read the resolution, and then the chair will entertain the motion to approve the resolution number 16.
Resolved by the Common Council of the City of Plymouth that it hereby informs the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, WDNR, that at its regular council meeting of Tuesday, May 31st, 2011, the Plymouth Common Council reviewed the 2010 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report and determined that no further action is necessary at this time.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the compliance maintenance resolution number 16 is read.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Like to compliment the utilities for their fine work.
you're handling
Oh,
it. No, you're
okay, you
handling-
can finish the
No,
sentence.
you go right ahead. You go right.
It's nice to know that we have the best rating that we can for our size of community, and certainly attest to the men that we have working for us in the utilities, so we congratulate you on that. Any other comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Item 7, approve request from Mike Caney Construction to start construction on the new utility operations center at 6 o'clock a.m. instead of 7 o'clock a.m. per city ordinance. We all have a copy of the letter from Caney Construction, and the chair will entertain a motion at this time. Alderman Lottie.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to allow them to start at 6 a.m. on construction on our new utility office building.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Zlotchek.
in the past, I think someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we've allowed a 6:30 start, not a 6 o'clock. Am I right or wrong?
We've had one instance where we went from 7 to 6:30, that's correct, yeah.
And I know that one of the issues is residential areas, and there's not a lot, but there are few residences in that area. And generally, I know that we put a little bit of pressure on Chief to monitor the noise level and complaints and so forth, and to let us know. I just wanted to point out that it's been 6:30. That I think there's been others, more than just one, in the past 3 years that I've been on the council.
Alderman Lottie?
Mr. Mayor, the reason I made the motion to go to 6 is because it's a fairly rural area out there. There's not a lot of residential area right in the area. The sooner we get this building up, the better it's gonna be. So I'm looking at, these guys can speed it up and keep going, and I'd like to see it start at 6. Thank you.
Director Jurgens?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think 6 o'clock is fine. I think we can let the contractor know that if there's a lot of complaints, that the council could revisit it and change the time in the future if there is a high level of complaints. So I think 6 o'clock would be adequate.
Well, and one of the main purposes of that is to fuel the vehicles and everything and get them ready, so when the crew shows up, that they're ready to work, and that certainly is a time saver for him too. Alderman Lottie?
I think we did the same thing up in Tumblers Ridge.
Yes, we did.
We had them start, I don't remember if it was 6:30 or 6 o'clock, I just can't remember,
We moved it up.
but I know we moved it up there.
Any other comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 8, mayoral appointment of council liaison to the Mill Pond Committee. The chair hereby appoints Alderman Jack Fernsler to fill that liaison position. Thank you. Item 9, approval of request to spend the remaining Mill Pond matching funds for the purpose of spraying cattails in an amount not to exceed $1,700. I'll ask Director Jurgens for a comment, and then if the chair, Bill Barbier, would like to comment, we'll certainly allow him to do that too. Director Jurgens?
Yeah, Mr. Bill Barbier is here tonight to answer any questions you might have, but leftover funds, if you remember that there was a $5,000 donation to the Mill Pond project for sediment testing and so forth. In addition, the city would match up to $5,000 for a total of $10,000 to spend on that project. The sediment testing that came back, and there is a report, and Mr. Barbier will be sharing that with council members at a future either Public Works and Utilities Committee meeting or maybe a committee of the whole. But that's to be determined what date we will be doing that. But the remaining balance, I think, is actually a little over $1,700, but essentially the balance is approximately $1,700, and the request is to use the remaining funds of that $10,000 project for purposes of doing a chemical spray to basically kill cattails on the mill pond. That is the request. And I would entertain questions, or if Mr. Bill Barbier has anything he would like to say.
Mr. Barbier, would you like to add to that at all? Update us? Okay. Alderman Lottie?
I just have one question, which is, the cattails usually grow in the marshy area, not in water, deep water or anything, and I'm wondering, by spraying, are we encroaching onto private property around the mill pond? Are we spraying at the private property, or just strictly within the boundaries of the mill pond? That's the only question I would have.
The answer to that is, we have to get a permit from the DNR, and all that is brought forward in the application for that. They want to know any property owners that are joining the spraying or anything of that fashion. The DNR basically monitors and regulates that.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question I had.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the expenditure. So for discussion then?
you wanna discuss it?
Oh, I'll wait till you guys put the motion and we'll discuss. That's fine.
Oh,
We need a motion, we need a first.
So move.
First, okay, we need a second.
Second.
We have a first and a second discussion. Alderperson Jarvis?
Yep, thank you. I'm just curious, what, is it going to get rid of all of the cattails, and are there other alternatives than using chemicals to get rid of the cattails?
Pardon, I didn't hear that entirely.
Is it the intent to get rid of all the cattails, and, are there other methods that you could use besides chemicals to remove the cattails?
Other methods were tried this past winter. We went through the park board and had a drawdown, and the public utilities was going to use a small vehicle, basically cut the cattails off on the top of the ice. That did not really work because I think on the second 50-foot pass, it go through the ice. There were a lot of private citizens that did it on their own manually to a certain degree, and a certain amount of them were taken care of that way, collected and burned. I would say there were about a half dozen people that over the period of the winter probably put in as much as 100 hours. Even the Boy Scouts were involved at one time. So we have tried other means. Usually when you look at the other way would be to possibly use a weed cutter on the water. The water's too shallow to really accommodate a weed cutter in any fashion like that. We have worked, discussed the situation with aquatic biologists out of Fond du Lac, and they recommended that this would probably be the best, but you probably aren't going to get rid of all of them. There's no way that you're going to get rid of all.
Alderman Sislacek.
Why is it that we have to get rid of the cattails?
They basically follow, they basically are so thick that they restrict the flow of surface water, and then when you get like duckweed or anything of that fashion that floats on top, it will hang up in that area and actually to the point almost become stagnant, because you don't have any flow through there because its cattails are so thick. The cattail, I don't know if you were taught, I don't like to go backwards, but the cattail problem, we didn't have it before we had the drawdown, and then we fled quick enough. And then, like it was mentioned before, cattails have a tendency to grow in low marshy areas. But once a cattail is grown above the top of the water level, that's how they breathe and that's how they grow. And DNR basically said if you cut them off and they flood it over, and that's why we tried the winter project, they will die. And we have had some success, especially on thinning them out in that fashion. But there were a lot of areas that we weren't able to get to, and they're still quite thick.
Is it just the cattails that hold up the flow of the water, and, or are there other?
There are other weeds. There are other aquatic weeds that basically grow up from the bottom. That would be, have to take a different kind of spraying. This type of spraying is a surface spraying, whereas you have to wait until the cattail gets full grown, and it basically kills it by going through the living part of the
Right.
the leaves.
So if you kill the cattails, the other things that are growing there are gonna hold up the water as well.
Yes, they will.
So by killing the cattails, is it necessarily gonna solve the problem?
Not entirely.
Aesthetics of it better.
That's a personal opinion.
Alderman Anderson?
It's similar to the same problem they've got out in Sheboygan Marsh, but not quite as bad. All that stuff just floats in with the, and then they have to either dredge it, drain it, and it lasts for a few years, and then start all over again. They're having the same problem this year.
Alderman Lottie?
If I may, I would like to ask Mr. Barbier or Bill Emmy, years ago, we used to spray that thing back in the 70s, 60s and 70s. We sprayed that thing every year. We used to spray that mill pond. That used to be an annual thing, spraying. I don't know if we could discontinue that or over the years, but I remember we used to do that every single year. We used to spray that mill pond, you know, and
Then the rules changed.
I
can't
suppose.
use this, you
And,
can't use
yeah.
that.
Yeah, right, that's a possibility.
They-
We quit spraying it, but we haven't sprayed it since I've been here.
Well, but,
We weren't doing it,
right,
you know.
before that, we did it, we did
I
always,
have, but
yeah,
like
right.
I said,
We did it
when I
every
got
year.
here, nobody said, oh, we gotta get the mill pond sprayed. And
Mm-hmm,
Well, like Jack said, the rules change and the chemicals, you can't use this, you can't use that
right,
anymore.
yeah, right.
Alderperson Jarvis.
Thank you. I guess that I'm not sure that cattails aren't a natural state for this. It's a pond. It's a wetland type area, so I'm not completely sold that the cattails are a problem and that they might just be an aesthetic problem for some, so, thank you.
Any other comments? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Lottie,
Question on the motion?
Let's reread the motion for understanding purposes.
approval of request to spend the remaining mill pond matching funds for the purpose of spraying cattails in the amount not to exceed $1,700.
Yes.
Sedlacek,
No.
Jarvis.
No.
Hanson,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 10, thank you, Mr. Barbier. Item 10, discussion and possible action regarding requests from Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation for 2011 sponsorship. Calling Director Yurgis to give us an update on that.
There is an invoice in your packet for the amount of $5,000, which is for the 2011 SCDC investment. In 2010, the city had pledged $5,000. I believe that entire amount came from the RLF Revolving Loan Fund Committee at that time. And there was discussion, my understanding is of up to a 3-year commitment from the city, initially starting, but that was never finalized or voted upon. And it was done on a 1-year basis in 2010 for the year 2010. And SCDC is looking for funding, from the city of Plymouth once again, for the year 2011.
Alderman Fernsler.
Do we have a list of what other cities are doing, or is this just Sheboygan and Plymouth? I mean, is Sheboygan Falls doing anything, or any of these other cities?
The county,
I'm sorry?
this is the county.
Yeah, but are they
Oh,
contributing?
okay, I see what
Just to clarify, this is Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation, but they are not affiliated directly to the county. They do have office space in a county building, but I do know that Sheboygan County, the city of Sheboygan contribute large amounts, and I'm not aware of Sheboygan Falls contributing any to date. I do think the investment in SCDC for $5,000, I think it is worth the investment, although, the comment I did make was that it would be nice that this would have been able to be considered along with the budget process, and which obviously didn't happen, and I don't know the reason for that. They did send us an invoice here in May, but previously I don't believe that the council authorized, an expenditure of those funds in 2011, but I did tell SCDC that in the future, that hopefully we can get some sort of formal request in September for the following year.
Might just comment, the Sheboygan County Board of Supervisors has committed $100,000. City of Sheboygan has committed $100,000. There's business sponsorships at different levels of sponsorship, major industries in the community. Last year, the $5,000 was through the revolving loan, and then there was an additional $5,000 that was through the Plymouth Industrial Development Corp. So it wasn't through the city funding whatsoever.
The second half, yeah.
The revolving loan and then the Plymouth Industrial Development Corp. And it's true, it was a 1-year, one-year time. The Board of Directors, Mel Blancy is on the Board of Directors that makes up the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corp., and as well as many other people in the community. The Board of or the directors do include the three mayors of the three communities, and I am on the committee of the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corp. But the request in their budget process is from, like Brian said, they sent us the invoice. So I would ask for a motion to approve the $5,000 sponsorship so we can discuss.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve the sponsorship of $5,000 and have that money come from the
Revolving loan fund?
no,
Economic development?
Contingency?
the contingency fund.
Okay. We have a first, do we have a second for that?
Second.
We have a first and a second to make a commitment of $5,000 to the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corp. Coming from contingency fund. Alderperson Jarvis.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. I think that some of the duties that are involved with our city services director are related to economic development, and I think that we'd be better served having $5,000 go towards any of his efforts, such as marketing our industrial park, doing something on our website with $5,000, or putting a brochure together with that $5,000 might be a better use of $5,000 at this point. And I also, because it was not approved prior to our budget planning process, I don't think that we should be taking this out of our contingent fund or any of our current funds. Thank you.
Alderman Sislatchik.
I would like to add that the city of Plymouth has put forth a lot of money to keep businesses in the city of Plymouth that don't employ only Plymouth citizens. That a lot of those people live outside the city limits of Plymouth, and those numbers far exceed $5,000, $100,000 and I kind of find it very hard. I know that $5,000 is not a large amount of money, but the amount of money that the city of Plymouth has put towards maintaining and increasing jobs for the people of Sheboygan County makes it hard to vote for this.
Alderman Hanson.
I believe this is a good program. I believe we have, and I'll echo what Alder Slotchik said, we've contributed in the past couple of years monies in that particular direction. I'm not saying we should not do it in the future, but I believe we've contributed money to a couple businesses locally here in town that are helpful in this particular manner too on it. So I find it hard to vote for $5,000 in that.
Alderman Lottie.
I would concur with Alder Jarvis. I find it hard to do the 5,000 when we've been doing things for communities, and I think our Director of City Service and Economic Development, and he can do that, put it towards his operations if he has to. That's my feeling on it.
Any other comments? Alderman Fernsler.
This is the second year, Brian, that this is,
Correct.
Correct.
and we have committed to 3?
No,
No, we committed
Not
one at a
officially,
time.
no, that there was, my understanding of it is, through the Industrial Development Corp., that there were conversations about sponsorship from the city of Plymouth in general, meaning Industrial Development Corp., City of Plymouth, whatever, that there was a discussion that there would be they were looking, at least according to Mel Blocky, that we were looking at a 3-year period for providing some assistance to SCDC. Now, that could, I guess, be viewed as, well, that's just the Industrial Development Corp. doing a 3-year contribution. I know that they will be contributing again. Or you could say, well, that it also includes the city of Plymouth, but there was discussions about 3 years. Now, it wasn't specific, necessarily where those funds were coming from. I think originally it was a request of $10,000 from the city of Plymouth, and then it so happened to be, there was a discussion, well, some of it coming from TIF, some of it coming from RLF, and then some of it coming from the Industrial Development Corp. And at the time, what was agreed upon is half of it, I believe, came from the Industrial Development Corp, and then the other half came from the RLF program, and that was voted on for a 1-year period. The 3-year part was never finalized in a motion or in any sort of document. That's just secondary information that I received, that there wasn't originally a discussion about a 3-year startup funding phase where they were seeking 3-year commitments from public entities.
Question.
Alderman Frenzel.
They've collected $100,000 from the city of Sheboygan, $100,000 from, does anybody know what they have in their pockets?
Well, they've got corporations committing, I think, 25 and up.
Well,
5,000, so
there's, are you asking what their balance sheet is?
Yeah.
Counting the pledges, I'm gonna say it's in the neighborhood of 220,000. But that was for this entire year and.
Now they're coming, so I take for granted that Sheboygan and Sheboygan County is gonna do something again this year?
No,
Mr.
that includes their 100 and 100.
What happened to the money they put in last year?
Well, some of that was spent on the,
I didn't see any
the
business.
video that was, just promoted
Well, yeah.
Sheboygan County, that's on
Yeah.
the website.
Mr. Mayor, they have one full-time executive director, that's Mr. Drynan. They had a second person, which I don't know if that was a limited term employment or a regular
That was
full-time
full-time,
position. But
yeah.
that individual left and went to another local municipality. They have recently hired, within the last maybe 2 months, I think, their new second employee, so they have 2 employees. The original seed money outside of Sheboygan County's contribution came from, I don't know what it was called, but the Economic Development Corporation within the city of Sheboygan. I believe those.
Sheboygan Economic Development.
Sheboygan
Okay.
Development Corporation.
Yep, and so
SDC.
they transferred and turned into Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation. The old organization no longer exists. This new organization exists now, and I believe they contributed, I think it was actually a couple $100,000
It was, yeah.
of assets that the old organization
Yeah.
had. Besides that, the Promise of Sheboygan County branding campaign is one of the big projects that they've spent money on. I haven't visited yet, but I understand that they recently came out with their new website. I do know that the city of Plymouth is shown on that website as part of properties that are available within Sheboygan County, and so they do market the city of Plymouth. So I guess that's a couple other points I wanted to share with you.
Their website, as Director Yurgis was pointing out, gives our industrial parks and the availability and access throughout the entire county, but it does emphasize City of Sheboygan Falls. It's my understanding that Mayor Meyer has in front of his council the same 5,000 proposal that's in front of us. Personally, I don't think that we can match the efforts of the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corp. For $5,000, we can't get out of the value of what we get out of that publicity and the different places that they reach, and to be part of that organization for a minimum amount. Now, we did, I'm gonna say, 3 years ago, John Rogers came to us and we approved a resolution adopting a cooperation agreement through the entire county, that the council passed a resolution on that some 3 years ago. And the attempt certainly is to work together, and if a business doesn't fit our location this time, it might fit our location the next time. The idea is to get it in the county so that we get some benefit out of it. $5,000 is a pretty reasonable price to get on the website, to get the publicity, to get the entire county working together for the benefit of all of us. And I would certainly encourage you to approve this 5,000 commitment. I think we've only been in it 1 year. I don't know that you can judge something that quickly, but certainly I feel a minimum investment. The county, the SECDC is not asking us to put in 100,000 like the county or like the city of Sheboygan. They do emphasize the entire county. This is not just the city of Sheboygan, which the old organization did. And we have principal companies that are invested in this as not platinum investors, but as charter members. Sargento is one of them. Johnsonville is one of them. And, you know, they do a lot more than just, say you have a vacant lot for development. There's, part of their literature is retaining businesses. They just held, matter of fact, Director Jurgis just attended a session that was put on at Kohler Company, that Kohler sponsored. They're obviously a sponsor of this, that was on retaining, what was the title of that, Brian, do you remember?
They were looking at, people 40 and under in Sheboygan County and looking at assets and opportunities for Sheboygan to attract educated, high-quality, educated individuals to the county.
Well, you,
and that's
in other
what our
words,
focus
retain.
on.
How do you retain high-quality people in a community if you don't have high-quality businesses that they can participate in and make a living in and grow in the community? So there's a lot of things that the SEDC does other than just put our name on the website and say, come and look at Plymouth. That's a very small part of what they do.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Suzlacek.
You know, as I sit here and listen to the things, and the one thing that would make me vote for this is that $5,000 is a very small amount to pay for the benefits that an entity like the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation can do for economic development in the county. And any economic development in the county will help the city of Plymouth. Whether it's in the city of Sheboygan or in Sheboygan Falls, the chance that more jobs are in the county, more chance that people who live in Plymouth would be some of the people getting those jobs. I know that some people are opposed to using the contingency fund for things like this. I would probably be open to an amendment if someone knows of a different place where that money might come.
Alderman Hanson.
I guess I would like to direct it to Director Jurgis about, you know, what is your opinion of this? Is this gonna be money well spent? You're kind of in that position. Alder
Yeah,
Jarvis mentioned about you too, and
A couple of points. Certainly, you could still forward this back to the RLF committee and seek their input on this and see if they want to use RLF funds to fund the $5,000. The manual allows for a certain percentage of the fund to be used for admin services, which includes money for this type of thing. And so that could be a source of funds for this. The second point I'd like to make is that if it is funded, I think we need to be clear that, you know, by the end of September, they need to have their request in for the following year so we can consider it along with our budget. The third thing is that in the future, we may want to consider some sort of memorandum of understanding or contract, which kind of outlines the services we get for contributing to SCEDC. And then my last point is I'll defer to my experience in the city of Austin when I was the administrator there. We funded an industrial development corp there. Our annual contribution was $40,000 for a community half the size of the city of Plymouth. So in my opinion, $5,000 is worth the investment in SCDC for an organization that is county-wide and that meets and talks with a lot of different businesses within the county that are looking for opportunity to grow. And I think $5,000 is a small price to pay. So I would recommend funding it either with RLF funds or by contingency, but be very clear that in the future, we need to have that request by the end of September for the following year.
Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Jarvis.
No.
Lottie.
No.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 11, approve increase in deductible from $10,000 to $15,000 for local government property insurance, recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee of May 10th. Clerk Huberty, I'll ask you just to briefly summarize that, and then the chair will entertain a motion.
We just received a notice of renewal. Our policy for property insurance renews on July 1 of each year, and they always offer options. The past few years, the council has provided for the dividends, I can't think of the word, sorry. The dividends from CIVMAC. Now that the bond issue is paid off, we get substantial dividends every year from CIVMAC. I think the first year was $9,000, second year $10,000, I think $11,000 this year. Those funds to be put into the self-property insurance fund for payments, that as we need them to cover, the deductibles on the policies for both the property insurance and for the liability insurance with CIVMAC. That fund is just over $43,000 right now. I took it to Director Jurgis to see, if we might consider increasing our deductible from $10,000 up to either $15,000 or $25,000 for some substantial savings in premiums, and we took that to the Finance and Personnel Committee, and they did recommend the change of going up to $15,000. We may look at, in the future, as that self-property insurance fund increases, that maybe we could even possibly go up to $25,000, but at this time, we think going up to $15,000 will, give us a good reduction in a premium.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the increase in the deductible from $10,000 to $15,000.
So moved. Second, Alder Anderson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Sedlacek.
I would possibly ask for an amendment that if we go to the $15,000 deductible, that the $2,540 that we would save on the premium be put right into the self-property insurance fund. Did we budget the number?
Well, that's what I usually ask. The council has approved in the past, anything that's left over at year end,
We don't know that
That,
number
you know, they
necessarily.
the
From what you
premiums-
budgeted?
right.
Okay.
Leftover premiums, or dividends at the end of the year.
Okay, so it would automatically go there
Right,
anyway.
and these
Okay.
are just estimates too. of
Sure.
So,
Okay,
If I may comment, that would be for the year in the future, we're not gonna budget $2,500 more for that expense.
right, but I'm saying this year
Yeah.
we did.
Right.
right.
I just
Most
wanna
likely we
clarify.
did. So
If
that
it-
money this year,
If it comes in that way.
correct.
Yeah, and we don't know that, so it might be appropriate that when we get that answer in the fall, that at that point, we then stipulate that go into the fund, because that's typically where Clerk Huberty put it.
Because that would help us get to that 25, 3
Yeah.
times 25
Right.
sooner.
I'm thinking in a year or two, you know, 2 to 3.
Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Sedlacek?
Yes.
Lottie?
Yes,
Fernsler?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Jarvis?
Motion carried, thank you. Item 12, accept resignation of Richard Hummel from the Committee on Aging. Chair will entertain a motion to accept.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
We have a first and a second to accept the resignation from the Committee on Aging of Richard Hummel. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Item 13, approve purchase of 2 reconditioned Insight voting machines at a cost of $4,950 each from Command Central, Waite Park, Minnesota, with funds to come from the 2012 capital outlay budget and any excess 2011 election and clerks department budgeted funds, recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee of May 10th. Chair will entertain a motion so we can discuss.
So move, Alder Hanson.
Second, Sedlacek.
We have a first and a second. I'll ask Clerk Huberty to give us a 60-second dissertation.
I have a memo talking, you know, that I've received notification from Command Central that they have reconditioned voting machines available. They normally cost about $6,500. They are selling them for $4,950 each. I've gone to the county and viewed these machines there. We could get by, as recommended by Julie Glancy, the county clerk, we could get by with 2 machines versus having to have 4. Thereby, we could better utilize the machines. We wouldn't have to have 4 distinct districts. We would have 2 districts, and they could both use the same machine. This machine is lighter, it's quieter, it's quicker printing. It would, and you can combine, like I said, the districts. Julie Glancy has highly recommended this to the city of Plymouth and the city of Falls to update our equipment as it's about 20 to 25 years old. We would save additional $540 in maintenance fees, and I'm requesting that if there's any unspent funds in the election budget or in the clerk's department, that we utilize those monies to pay for it, and then the balance come from the 2012 budget. We are able to get January 2012 billing, so it wouldn't, you know, come due until the 2012 budget. And with the presidential coming up in 2012, I'm really nervous about using the machines we have, and the upgrade would be nice.
Thank you, Clerk Huberty. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hanson,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Lottie,
yes,
Jarvis.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 14, approve the Director of City Services to submit a letter of intent to join the downtown clinic known as the Center for Health and Wellness. Chair will entertain a motion so we can discuss.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second. This was on the Committee of the Whole earlier this evening. If we have any follow-up discussion, Chair will entertain any questions on it. I think it was a real good presentation, and it gives us a chance to see what we can do, and if there is a savings, it would be nice. Clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Lottie,
yes,
Hanson,
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 15, approve reappointment of James Hughes to the Library Board to a 3-year term. This was recommended by the Library Board and comes to the council for approval. The mayor we'll make the appointment and ask for the confirmation by the council.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Lottie.
I would make a motion to approve your appointment, reappointment of James Hughes to the library board for a 3-year term.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 16, approved application for temporary Class B beer and wine license from Plymouth Intergenerational Coalition for June 11th, 2011, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. at 1500 Douglas Drive for a community open house celebration. Chair will entertain a motion to approve so we can discuss.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Sitlacha.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 17, discussion and possible action regarding Redeemer Church claim. We have a opinion from Thomas Mann, and I would ask Clerk Huberty to read that, and then have city attorney comment on that.
This is from Tom Mann of Sidmic. I am in receipt of the above claim that has been filed against the City of Plymouth, Plymouth Utilities in the amount of $948.54. It is my understanding that this damage was incurred as a result of a water main breaking. I would suggest that you check with the Utilities Department to determine if there was prior knowledge of a problem in this area with the water main and whether or not there was any action that could have been taken prior to this loss to have avoided this incident. If there was prior notice and no corrective action was taken within a reasonable amount of time and/or there was action that could have been taken but was not, consideration should be given to settling this claim. However, if this water main broke and there was nothing that the utilities did to cause this break or nothing that could have been done to have avoided this incident, it would be my recommendation that this claim be denied. As you are aware, municipalities are held to a standard of reasonable care, and the courts have determined that reasonable care means to take corrective action in a reasonable amount of time when placed on notice of a problem and to make reasonable attempts to inspect. The claimants have indicated that there was improper flushing of the system which caused the fixtures to be damaged. I would again check with the utilities to see if anything was done improper when this area was flushed. Did they use the normal procedure, or was there something they did wrong or improperly when this area was flushed out? If there was nothing that was done improperly or different from the normal procedure, it would be my recommendation that this be denied.
Thank you. And City Attorney Faber, you want to make a quick comment on that?
I'll just say that I concur with the opinion from Tom Mann of Civic, and based on the information that we have from the utilities manager, I think the recommendation is to deny the claim.
Thank you. The Chair will entertain a motion to deny the claim in the amount of $964 and
$948.54.
54 cents, what she said.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Alder Anderson.
We have a first and a second to deny the claim as indicated. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Sazlacek.
I will be abstaining as my wife is employed by Redeemer.
Any other comment? Clerk will call the roll.
Hanson,
Yes.
Jarvis. Sedlacek,
Abstain.
Lottie,
Yes.
Fernsler. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 18, approve the offer by Duco Incorporated, Waukesha, Wisconsin, to take back the 2009 line truck with digger and PHEV equipment and exchange it for a new line truck with digger without the PHEV equipment, plus a credit of $18,561 to be applied towards another new vehicle in the future. I'll ask John McKinnon, the utility manager, to make a comment, and maybe Director Yurgis on that, and then the chair will entertain a motion.
Thank you. right to move into that arena and be a leader in the field with this digger derrick unit. We took delivery on the unit in July of 2009. We understand that we would have some challenges along the route to make this vehicle function. Even if we would not have a plug-in hybrid vehicle, the nature of the vehicle itself with the digger derrick unit on it has challenges on the first acquired it, going through tightening the oil leaks and getting the mechanics right on that. They reach a point in time where those nuisance items and maintenance items are resolved, and you can move forward with a reliable piece of equipment. We have not reached that to date, and we have diligently pursued other alternatives with the manufacturer, Ducal company, and we've been able to reach a settlement which I'll have for your consideration for you this evening. The settlement was reached last week, May 24, and basically the vehicle that we purchased in 2009 was at a cost of $314,509. Ducal has indicated that the truck has at least 18 months of depreciation on it, about $67,395 that needs to be accounted for, and that there's some outstanding service orders on the truck amounting to $8,892. Taking account the depreciation and the outstanding service order, there's a credit here of about $238,222. What Duke was proposing to do is replace that vehicle without the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle equipment on it. And that vehicle would cost us $219,661. It would be built onto a 2011 chassis, replacing the unit that's built on a 2009 chassis. And then that would leave us a credit of $18,561 to be applied in the future to another vehicle. We are, as you've probably seen in my management reports, looking for another line vehicle. The vehicle we'll be looking for shortly will be a bucket truck or a aerial device truck versus a digger derrick unit. Still a line truck, but a different function on what that truck will do. So the credit would be considered at that point in time, looking at the bucket truck as we go forward. We want to be in a position with the future bucket truck to be able to also compare competitiveness of other vendors. And so the $18,000 credit would be looked at after we do the comparative proposal from other vendors that can provide us similar equipment for this bucket truck. So it's a compromise, and if we were to continue to retain the unit we have now, my staff's convinced that we're going to continue to have the challenges to try to keep this unit in working order and for us to be able to depend on it. And that challenge will be significant. That does make us comfortable. That we think we need to move on and take consider this offer. Brian?
Yeah.
Thank you. Director
Mr. Mayor,
Yurgis?
if I can just add a couple points. This goes back to Mr. Novice when he was here working on this issue, Mr. Peterson working on this issue, Mr. McKinnon working on this issue, and it then came to my attention as well. And in discussion, obviously it's not only the cost of continuing to fix this piece of equipment, but also consider all of the downtime that is associated in not being able to utilize this piece of equipment. Originally, the last effort was, we'll give you a credit of $238,000, but you have to buy two pieces of equipment for us to get the full $238,000. We went back and Mr. Peterson was able to get them to say, no, we'll give you a future credit of $18,500, which is good through December 31st of 2012. I think that's the best, unfortunately, I think this is the best outcome we can get at this time, and certainly my recommendation would be to get out of this piece of equipment and purchase a more reliable, proven piece of equipment. Sometimes things don't work, technology doesn't work like we think it might, so I think this is one of those cases.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the proposal as outlined, so we can discuss.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second to approve the offer by Duco Incorporated as outlined with a new C4047 digger derrick per spec and a credit of $18,561 towards the purchase of a future vehicle prior to 12/31/12. Is that correct in every way? Okay. Discussion, Alderman Lottie?
Mr. Mayor, I would just make a comment. Sometimes it's not always best to be first buying something that technology hasn't been developed out for it yet, you know, and you're becoming the guinea pig, you know, and you go through the process and you buy a piece of equipment or whatever, and it doesn't work to your specifications or satisfaction. And I think this is one of the problems. I always maintain if you're gonna buy something, look and see what it performed before you put your money on the line. Thank you.
Any other comment?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Sizlacek.
what was the, John, the life expectancy of this truck?
The life expectancy,
It ran out already.
minimum is 7 years is how the truck is depreciated.
Okay,
We look at getting 10, 15 years out of the vehicle, based on its wear and tear.
And depending on the
how did they
batteries
come,
you
do you know
want.
how they came up with $67,000 on 18 months?
Yeah, so it's based on 7-year depreciation.
So, okay, so that number works?
Yeah.
For the, okay.
Any other comment? Alderman Hanson.
If we don't purchase a piece of equipment before December 31st of 2012, the $18,000 is gone, right? That is correct.
Alderman Sizlacek, then Alderman Lottie.
And we're gonna purchase another truck, put it out to bid. I'd just be interested to know that theirs is gonna have that 18,000 as part of their bid somehow, some way, I don't know.
Yes? Alderman Lottie.
That's what I was gonna say, you know, we're gonna have an $18,000 credit, but if you put out bids, they might come in below the 18,000, so you just forgo the credit. You know, that's the way I'm looking at it, but if they come in all higher, you know, you're gonna probably go this route here and take the credit.
They don't come in for $18,000.
I mean, the difference between the two bids.
I guess you gotta cross that bridge when you come
Credit
to
they're
it.
There you go.
offering us, you know, compared to what the bid is.
And any other comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes,
Jarvis.
Yes.
Furnsler.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 19, utility reports. We have the manager's report for May 2011. Item B, list of vouchers, April 2011, authorized payment of April vouchers. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the list of vouchers and authorize payment of same.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second, any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Furnsler.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Lottie.
yes,
Motion carried, thank you. Item C, income and balance sheets for April 2011. Item D, collection statement for April 2011. Item E, uncollectible accounts, May 2011, $2,780.25. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the uncollectibles for May 2011 in the amount of $2,780.25.
So move, Walter Lottie.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Lottie,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Bernsley.
Motion carried, thank you. Item F, acknowledge the 2010 Compliant Maintenance Annual Report. Item 20, other business. I would ask Clerk Huberty to read the letter from MTA, correspondence regarding Municipal Treasurers Association. Clerk Huberty?
The Municipal Treasurers Association of Wisconsin, MTAW, is proud to announce that Charmaine Romer, or as we know her, Sherry Romer, CMTW, has completed the necessary requirements to achieve the designation of Certified Municipal Treasurer of Wisconsin, the CMTW. In an organization of over 500 members, only 88 have achieved this honor. The individual must meet both educational and work experience criteria in order to be certified. It must be renewed every 5 years by attending continuing education classes and maintaining proficiency in their area of fiduciary responsibility. The MTAW applauds Sherry Romer, CMTW, on this achievement. And I'd like to also personally congratulate Sherry, and this completes that all three of us in the clerk treasurer's office are certified. I thank the council for approving, the attending of the institute yearly in Green Bay to accomplish all of these certifications for all three of us. If you see Sherry, congratulate her.
Very
Thank
good,
you.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Lottie?
I would just like to comment, this goes to show me the level of our staff here at the city hall and in the city of Plymouth, Our employees, they go above and beyond what we're asking of them, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Item B, minutes acknowledged for filing, Community Television, April 18th, Finance and Personnel Committee, May 10th, Board of Review, May 12th. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We have a first and a